What's up, everybody? It's ATJ Sports Room back here again on YouTube, and I'm going to be doing some Eastern Conference semifinal previews. We got some very interesting semifinal matchups here. We have the Heat taking on the Bucks in the 1 vs 4 matchup, and then we have the Toronto Raptors taking on the Boston Celtics in the 2 vs 3 matchup. I honestly think that these teams are pretty evenly matched. I think the two series could be very, very competitive. Let's go ahead and start breaking down some of the teams that are in this semifinal. The 1 seed coming into this Eastern Conference semifinal is the Milwaukee Bucks, and coming into the restart, it was pretty safe to say that pretty much everyone had them as the favorite to come out of the East. Best record in the regular season. They have the Defensive Player of the Year, and probably the player who's going to be the MVP, Giannis. Put a lot of pressure on the Bucks. People thought he'd learn from his mistakes in last year's series against Toronto and would come and lead the Bucks to a dominant return in the bubble. Not exactly what's happened here. We have a Milwaukee team that has a 7-6 record in the restart here in Orlando and has looked very shaky, especially on offense. Even in the games they won against the Magic, which they won that series in 5 games, very inconsistent. The Magic were in some of those games late. On paper, that series looks like a total mismatch. In actuality, the games were pretty competitive. The Magic won game 1 and were in several of the other games. Even the game today, game 5, they were in the game late in the fourth quarter. Milwaukee has definitely shown some vulnerable moments here, especially on the offensive side, and has not been as dominant as I think everyone would have thought they would be. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the Bucks' opponent, the Miami Heat, who have surprised me and I think surprised a lot of people in how dominant they were in their first round series against the Indiana Pacers. I think a lot of people looked at that matchup as pretty even. But gotta hand it to the Miami Heat. You know, they held TJ Warren in check. Victor Oladipo was out there for Indiana. But, you know, I've been impressed by some of the players who have been emerging stars, because we all know Jimmy Butler's a star and he's been pretty good. He was really good in the last playoff series. To me, Bam Adebayo, he came from Kentucky and he was an all-star this year. He's surprised me and just about everybody. He's really been giving them some good minutes. You have Goran Dragic, who just seems to never age. Coming off the bench, Tyler Hero out of Kentucky as well. You put together a team that I think could give a competitive series to Milwaukee. Miami obviously has their problems as well, but if you're just looking at the playoffs, they've been pretty good. So I think this series is definitely competitive. I don't know if Miami's necessarily the team to beat Milwaukee, but I do like a lot of the players on their team, and I think this is going to be a very interesting and competitive series. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the series that could be the treat of the NBA playoffs so far. We have the Toronto Raptors taking on the Boston Celtics. Let's talk a little bit about the defending champion Toronto Raptors, who are another team that have surprised some people. I think a lot of people figured they would be good, as Toronto is, the last few years especially, last 4 or 5 seasons have been really consistent. You know, before Kawhi Leonard got there, they were a 60-win team, very close to a 60-win team. And they always play solid basketball, and last year was the year that they won the championship and really made a deep run in the playoffs. This is a team that has a chip on their shoulder. They want to prove that they're not just Kawhi Leonard's ex-team and that they are actually a championship contender. And when you start looking at their team, you got to like what you see. When you think about Toronto, you think about depth. Kyle Lowry, who was on the championship team last year, leader, very efficient player, gives you really good minutes. You got Fred VanVleet, who can just go supernova and make a bunch of threes and look like Steph Curry out there. Pascal Siakam, who's a young emerging star who signed a max deal before the season started. Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, OG Anunoby. You know, even Norman Powell can give you some good minutes. He gave you a pretty good game in game 2 against the Nets. It could just come down to bodies. When you look at Toronto, deep team, very deep team. Even with Kyle Lowry being a little bit hobbled, he had the sprained ankle. That's definitely going to be something to look out for in this series. Toronto, very viable team. And we saw that as they dispatched of the Brooklyn Nets in 4 games. Now let's take a look at the Toronto Raptors opponent, the Boston Celtics, who I believe have one of the most improved players and one of the biggest emerging stars in the NBA, Jason Tatum. Now, if we're talking about star power, you could make the argument the Celtics have a higher ceiling as far as their stars. I think Jason Tatum just keeps ascending and is looking better and better as the series go on. And then, of course, you have Kemba Walker, frequent all-star, really solid player. You have Jaylen Brown in there. The injury to Gordon Hayward has really hurt the Celtics, and I think the big thing, when I was talking about depth with Toronto, the Celtics cannot say the same thing for their depth. In the playoff series against the 76ers, the bench for them averaged 20 points a game. You're going to have to get more than that. Who can you rely on when you go to your bench if you're Boston? Because I'm going to list off some of the players that come off their bench. Ojale, Grant Williams, Enes Kanter, Williams III, Wanamaker, Langford, Carson Edwards, and Taco Fall. You know, as Brad Stevens goes to his bench has given him some stinkers. the last game of the series, his bench gave him 11 points. I mean, you had to have Jason Tatum give you 28, Tice had to give you 15, Kemba Walker had to give you 32, and Jaylen Brown had to give you 16. We're talking about a team that relies a lot on their starters, and you can do that when you have star power. But when you're playing against a Toronto Raptors team, great defensive team, just has bodies on top of bodies to throw at you, are you going to be able to get that same production compared to when Boston was playing against an injured Philadelphia 76ers team who was just shorthanded, no Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid didn't even want to be in the arena, even though he played great. That's how bad the 76ers were. It was just a complete disaster. Did not give the Celtics a real challenge. So I think the biggest thing for this series is going to be, how do the stars perform for Boston, and can the bench give you anything better than what they have been? That's going to be the difference in this series. I think this series could go 6 or 7, be an absolutely excellent series, possibly the treat of the Eastern Conference. Wrapping up this preview, I think we have 4 really good teams, and it's going to provide for some really exciting series as we inch closer to the NBA Finals. I really don't see a clear-cut favorite here, honestly. Every team has problems. You look at Milwaukee, they have just been inconsistent. Their record has shown that. They have the best player, Giannis, but there's a lot of pressure on them for them to win this year. And if not, people have been saying, would Giannis leave them? Toronto has probably been the most consistent team with an 11-1 record in the restart. But again, there's still some questions about star power. Do they have that one star who could really take them over the top? Obviously, they have guys you like Kyle Lowry, Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet. And then the Celtics, it's bench play. Are they going to be able to give you the bench production they need to? They obviously don't have a lack of stars with Kemba Walker and Jason Tatum, even Jaylen Brown. But with no Gordon Hayward in the series against the Raptors, are they going to be struggling to find points when it comes to bench guys minutes? And you don't want to exhaust your starters, making them play the entire game. And then with the Miami Heat, there's just some question marks. They were really good in their series against Indiana, but in the the ending to the regular season in the bubble, they weren't super great and had some pretty bad losses. So there's just some question marks there. There's also some question marks about star power. You have Jimmy Butler, but then outside of him, who do you trust to get you buckets consistently, especially against a great defensive team like Milwaukee? Is Bam Adebayo and Goran Dragic and Tyler Hero and all those guys, are they going to step up and come up to that challenge? Who knows? So this is as close as it gets as far as the semifinal. The bridge between elite and very good is smaller than it ever has been, especially with the bubble aspect and no travel dates and everyone's rested. So yeah, it's really exciting, and I am looking forward to these matchups. So if you guys enjoyed this preview, go ahead and give a subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's ATJ Sports Realm. I do all kinds of different videos ranging across many different sports. I'm hoping to be able to do some college football videos, fingers crossed. There's an FCS game on currently as I'm filming this, but we'll see what happens as we get closer to that season. Stay tuned if you're interested in that, and I will see you guys in the next video.